Hey mamas.
mamas! Welcome back to another episode. I'm Jess.
I'm Erica.
And today, guys, we have got Lauren the nanny. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. Tell us why the nanny? Do you want our kids?
No, thanks, actually.
Before we get started, do you shout at your kids?
Yeah, because they're my kids.
All right, we can be friends then.
Mama's Code.
It's a bit different when it's other people's.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone would be shouting at anyone else's kids.
Some people do though.
Really? Like when they're nannying?
Yeah, I've seen it. Not anyone that I know, but I've seen it at soft play and places like that. So you'd be very, very surprised.
But do you think it's shouting or like firm talking? Because I was practicing a lot of it today. I thought, let me not shout, let me just be firm. But in my head, it just all sounds the same.
No, there's a difference. I think when it's your own kids, it's hard to not shout and just do the firm talking. I think you just automatically just shout. When it's someone else's kids, you're a lot more aware of what you're doing. So like say you had your niece or your nephew or something, like you probably wouldn't shout at them, but you'd be firm.
Why do you think that is?
I think because you're just conscious. You are emotionally attached to them, but not in the way that you are your own children. So they affect you a bit more when they're your own kids.
I think it's because you know that, well, a lot of people tend to say, oh, I birthed you, I brought you into this world, I can take you out. Whereas you can't do that with anyone else's
no,
kids.
It's true. That as well.
So how did you come about nannying?
Well, I've always wanted to work with kids, and I started working with children when I was 17. Yeah, it was 17. I studied childcare in high school. I just wanted to be, at that point I wanted to be a teacher. And then I went to college and I studied childcare for 2 years, a level 3 course. So it was quite intense, and you went into schools and you had placements and stuff. And then that's when I realized, actually, I don't want to be a teacher. And then I left college and I started working in a nursery, and I worked there for about 3 years, and I really enjoyed it. But I think I kind of got to a point where I wanted something different. And then I was also babysitting at that time. And one of the families that I was babysitting for actually was looking for a nanny. And it was just really weird, actually. It was a day that I was babysitting them, and I think the kids were in bed, and I was looking on Gumtree looking for jobs. And I saw their ad on Gumtree while I was babysitting their kids. So when they came home, I mentioned it to them, and that was it. The rest was history. I think the next month I started working for them, stayed with them for 3 years until my son was born. And then my intention was to go back, but their circumstances changed. So I then just started looking for jobs where I could bring him. So that's it. I never, ever went back to work with him going elsewhere. Like, he's always come to work with me. And I was pretty much one of the first nannies in the area where I was working to kind of do that. I think I was one of the first nannies to actually even get pregnant, because it was a bit like, what is going on here? When I used to go to school, they're like, oh, the nanny's pregnant. Like, it was a big, massive thing. And then after that, I started looking after some twins I stayed with for another 3 years. And then my contract was up with them. And when I left them, I had intentions of going and starting to study midwifery. But in the meantime, I was like, oh, I'll just... I was actually on holiday in St. Lucia for the summer, and I was like, oh, I'll start a new Instagram, just like a nanny one, because I'll do some ad hoc nannying. And then and I called it Lauren the Nanny, and I thought, I'll just call it that for now, and I'll just change it, when I get a better name or whatever. And then I came back and I just started doing some ad hoc work, and I just started really enjoying it. So I just continued, and I've just been doing it ever since. And obviously I took a break when my little girl was born, and it was a pandemic, so we weren't allowed to work anyway. And now she comes to work with me.
Did it not ever put you off having kids?
No, I just think I'm a really maternal person. Obviously I was a nanny before I had children. I like kids, so I obviously must like them. So yeah, no, it hasn't. Hence why I have two now.
I'm very maternal too. Like, my kids piss me off, I reckon, 100 out of like 100 times. But I still like, you know, when you like look at them and they're getting a bit older and you're like, oh, maybe I should birth another one. So definitely it is that. Because I never thought I'd be a maternal person. I remember when I was younger, I would say I would have kids when I was 50, and that was always my thing. My mum would be like, oh, that's so ridiculous. And yeah, that didn't happen.
So I wanted to ask you a question, both of you guys. What do you think makes you a woman apart from your vagina?
I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, I definitely know that I'm supposed to be a woman. I don't feel like I'm any way, shape or form supposed to be a man.
Erica?
You said not because of my vagina, right?
Yeah.
I just don't know, like, you know, my biology makes me a woman. You know, knowing that I can, you know, birth a baby, although like not every woman can birth a baby, but you know, it's within our biology and we know that some can do it, some can't. But I think that's what kind of makes me a woman. What makes you a woman?
Well, I was going to say, would you both think that your vaginal orgasms don't make you a woman? Or the ability to multitask?
Multitask, yes.
100%. That's definitely not a male orientated situation. No, they can never do that. Also, finding things, I think it's female, because I have 2 boys and my husband, and I'm like, oh, it's just there in the kitchen. And I promise you not, I've seen them. They go and stand in the middle of the kitchen and they just like look around. And I'm like, why don't you like go and actually look for things, like, you know, pick up a paper, do something. They just expect to find it from the middle of the kitchen and just browse it. I was like, what are you doing?
Oh, bless them.
That's funny.
All right, and I have one more question. What would you tell your future self in 20 years' time?
I would say not to stress about things that really don't matter, and don't sweat the small stuff. Enjoy the time that you have with all your loved ones.
It's quite emotional when you think about it, no?
It is, because is this like you saying it knowing
Like
what
if
you know
could,
now?
Yeah, so if you could put yourself in a time traveling machine right now to 20 years time to yourself, what would you say to yourself?
God, that's quite scary.
Erica's thinking about it. Erica would forget.
I'd probably look at myself and be like, who are you? No, I think I will kind of like Lauren, you know, appreciate the people in your life and don't take life too seriously. Because I feel like sometimes we're so consumed with, you know, we kind of like work to live and we don't actually live. So I definitely, you know, try to relax and just enjoy it and spoil myself. Travel.
Well, let's hope that in 20 years' time we can travel.
No, there'll probably be another pandemic.
Oh no, stop, please.
Not only that, you'll have grandchildren too.
Yeah.
Oh my
How scary is
God.
that?
We'll be babysitting.
That's actually really scary, because imagine, oh my God, I thought I'd be living my best life having cocktails somewhere.
You will, because remember, they're not your kids.
So guys, as you know, today is International Women's Day and it's Mother's Day on Sunday. And that's why I was asking you guys this question, because I thought that, do you know what? I feel like sometimes as a mother, people don't appreciate you as much as you should. Or maybe you as a mother not always feels like you're actually valued or appreciated. Or, you know, if your kids or husband or whatever say to you, oh, we love you, mum, you might not really take the depth of those words. Because, do you know what? We're always so quick to guilt trip ourselves into things, or think we're not doing good enough, or I should try harder. And so I just wanted to point that out to, you know, basically be a bit kinder to yourself. It's really hard because we always want to do better. And at the end of the day, we always sit back and reflect and we think, oh, fuck, why did I do this? Or why did I say that? Or why did I react like this? And then we are always so hard on ourselves that we kind of don't take in how much people appreciate the mother, basically. Because at the end of the day, they are the backbone of a house. Not to say that dads aren't, but who's going to find your socks? Or who's going to do your school science project at midnight when you've just remembered you've got to hand it in tomorrow, you know? Dad's sleeping, like snoring, watching TV or something. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out, guys.
Aw, that's cute.
It's very cute.
You lot are a bit thrown back. And guys, before we get into this, because I know we're very excited, I just thought I'd get you guys in your feelings at the moment.
Really in our feelings.
Everyone listen, if you could see their faces right now, they're really like, damn, I should log off and go spend time with my family.
Literally. Yeah, the questions that were throwing me back, I was like, hold on a minute, this wasn't on the mind map. I feel like this is fraud. Yeah, why weren't we able to prepare for this?
Well, that in itself, only a mum can do, you know? You get thrown your challenges at you and you just take what you can and go. You put your chin up and you go, go, go. So guys, before we get into this, I just want to put a disclaimer out there on behalf of us three, is that every single person has an opinion. Everyone has, you know, their feels. Everyone has their right of speech. And I think, you know, before we started recording, Lauren did say that people, I don't know if it was Lauren or Erica, but people are a bit scared to speak out right at the moment with everything that's going around the world. You know, the world is so sensitive to everything. Like, you can't say anything without having to double and triple check if it's okay. And personally, I feel like it's a bit jarring. You just feel like you have to suppress your opinions, and it's all about having constructive conversations and learning to know, to see each other's point of view rather than judging and pointing fingers left, right and center. So I will say, disclaimer, we don't want to be cancelled and we don't want to say anything that's going to offend anyone. But this week, or was it last week, I came across this on the newspaper. I'm pretty sure everyone did. The header was, "There's only one sex that can give birth. Fury at hospitals order to midwives to say chest feeding so transgender people are not offended, as new maternity bill refers to pregnant people instead of women." So now pregnant people, not women. What do you guys feel about that?
I kind of feel like it depends as well, like in which context they're going to be using this. Are they going to be using this context when they're speaking to a pregnant mum? Or are they only going to use it when they are speaking to a pregnant person?
Yeah, so that was the misunderstanding with everyone. That's why everyone was like, oh my God, you're taking this away from us. Only women can breastfeed, blah, blah, blah. And it's because obviously, you know, how social media is and how the headlines are. They always just want to go for the big jackpot. But it's just the midwives have now been given this new dictionary of words that can be used with these transgender people and parents and these non-binary people that are coming to be parents. It's not that everything is going to be like, oh, breastfeeding. If you're clearly a woman that have come in and you identify as woman, then they will of course say woman.
I mean, I feel like I do understand that, you know, now the world is changing and they, you know, transgender people and non-binary people, they do want to feel included, and obviously this is their way of including them. But does that mean that, and I'm speaking as a mother now, does that mean that they then take away the fact that a mother breastfeeds? Are they taking that away from us? You know, it's not going to be something that's unique to a mum. You know, I don't have a problem if the hospitals are choosing to use this terminology to include, you know, non-binary and transgendered people.
I just think, why is it, and I also read an article about this, because, you know, men also have breasts. Your chest isn't what you give your child when they're born. Your chest is what your breast is attached to. You know, men get breast cancer. Are they going to start calling it chest cancer? You know, it's two complete different things. And I get it, but these words can make a woman feel alienated. And, you know, it has offended a lot of people, because it's like, you're depriving us from something that belongs to us. And, you know, if you would have asked me yesterday, before I educated myself on the subject, I would have said, you know, if you're born female, you transition to male, then you decide, oh, wait, hold on a minute, I want to get pregnant, have a baby, go through all the, you know, when you're having a baby, you know, they'll use terms as uterus, you know, vagina, but, you know, because transgendered men have body dysphoria and breast is a triggering word for them. Now, apparently the whole thing has to change. But I don't get it. If it's so triggering for you, wouldn't birthing a baby, something that belongs to the biology of a woman, not trigger you too?
That's really confusing, because I feel like if you identify to a specific gender, then would you not want to live as that gender would do? You know, if you were a woman and you wanted to be a man, then I guess you would accept that you weren't going to have any children or give birth, because that's not what a man does. So I feel like possibly there's some attributes that they might want from one specific gender, but then they want the rest from the other. It's kind of like having your cake and eating it.
I was just gonna say that. I was gonna say, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate. What if, because you know there's always the male or the dad that actually does want to be a dad and a father, and then there's the female that their kids is not really for them. So when this person has decided to go from woman to male, deep down in their brain they know they wanted to be a mother, or at least have kids, right? They wanted to be a parent. So now that they've transitioned to being male, they know that they basically haven't let go of their womb and uterus, because they know that they want to be a parent at some point. Obviously, if you were to say this out loud to society is going to turn around and say everyone is allowed to be a parent, right? But the argument is, if you've decided to give up being a woman because you don't identify as this, you felt trapped in that body, but then you're okay walking around with a womb and a uterus because you want to be a biological parent.
It's just very confusing. I don't really think there's a way to kind of explain or try to understand what they're thinking, because it doesn't make any sense to me. But you're absolutely right. I think you've held on to your womb, and you may have started taking or not taking certain supplements because you might want to chest feed or breastfeed. So in one aspect, you do still want to hold on to the fact that you were a woman.
But then where do we draw the line? Because if you're transitioning, you know, you've decided to, you know, operate your breast because you don't identify as a woman, why would you keep something that belongs to a woman? Because having a womb, having a uterus makes you a woman. So if you don't feel that way, why do you keep this? And by no means, I know, like, I respect, you know, all types of love and everyone's entitled to do what they want. But this is what I don't understand. It's like you said, you know, they want to have the cake and eat it. It's like, so you want both things. You want to be a man and a woman, but then you're stating that, talking about, oh, I don't want to call this breast because it makes me feel uncomfortable. Yet you've kept your uterus and your womb to have a baby.
And then say that you're experiencing gender dysphoria. I'm sorry, but how? Like, make it make sense, you know?
When you look at things like religion, like, I'm Catholic, and this is something that I guess isn't classed as accepted, basically. But what worries me is how the younger generation are going to see this stuff. And I know that some schools, I mean, I'm not sure my son's school does it because it's also a Catholic school, so I think they have ways of approaching certain topics like this. But it just worries me as to what they're going to start thinking is, I don't know, I just feel like they're going to be really confused. Because if we're confused, if we as grown-ups are confused, they will never understand what's going on. They just won't understand it. I'll never forget, when I looked after two girls, they had in their class a set of twins, and their parents were same-sex parents. And I remember the little girl came home one day and she was like, how does this happen? Because she knows how kids are made. Her parents had told her. So she said, but I don't understand. How does this happen? So I explained in a kind of way that she would understand, kind of said that, you know, the two ladies, they loved each other and they had to go to the shop to get some seeds because they didn't have any seeds. They only had eggs, and, you know, and she got it, but she didn't really get it because it's not something that she sees in her house. So that we can explain. We can explain this to, we can explain same-sex relationships to children. We can. It's easier to explain. But what is happening now in regards to like the conversation that we're having now, how do you explain that to a child? Because as society changes, this is something they're going to see more often, and they'll be asking lots of questions. How would you explain this to a kid?
Well, imagine we know someone that basically built gender neutral toilets in, was it a primary school, Erica, or was it a secondary school?
Primary school.
So imagine, like, I get it, you're trying to normalize this in somewhat, but how is it that you're going out shopping with your child, your son or your daughter, and you're saying, oh, we need to go to the female toilet because, you're a girl, but then you're going to school and all of a sudden everyone can share the same toilet? And also, where's that privacy that women or little girls that believe themselves to be little girls and identify as little girls feel sharing that toilet with boys, or boys that may feel like they're not in the right body sharing a toilet with boys and girls? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that also it does highlight a massive child protection issue also, because as you said, there are going to be little girls that identify as being little girls. There will also be little boys that identify with being little boys. And I just think, like you said, they need to have privacy, because, what you have to also remember is, if you don't make these children understand that there needs to be some privacy in regards to like their private areas and things like that, they will not know when it's okay to allow people to kind of see this kind of stuff. Basically, when is it going to be okay? Is it okay, for me to go into, okay, so this toilet, like you're saying, is in a primary school, but what if there's one in Westfield? Is it okay to go in there?
But I wouldn't even be surprised with the way things are going. I wouldn't be surprised seeing a man in a woman's toilet. And this is the thing, like, this is my question: where do we draw a line? How do we know? Like, I've seen tons of people, throw their, oh, I've got the depression card. Everyone's got depression nowadays. So what if I went into the man's toilet and said, oh, sorry, I have to come in here because I don't identify as any sex, so I have to come into this one because I don't want to be with women, or I feel more man than woman. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So are we just going to have like random guys rolling into the woman's toilet?
You got to think about your safety as well. Like, how do you know that that's actually the truth? Like, they could just be using that as an excuse, and then it's really worrying, because I don't send my little boy in the toilet by himself. He comes in the women's toilet with me, but he will get of an age where he will go in the men's toilet by himself. And people basically will use this excuse to their advantage, but in a really
malicious
and just this disgusting way. Basically, they'll use it to their advantage to try and manipulate people, when there are genuinely people, like you said, that are like that, and they do identify with a certain gender. But what will happen is there'll be those people that spoil it for them, and it's just a scary situation, because, like you said, when do you draw the line? When do you, like, how do you know what's, right? What's the truth? What's not? What's safe? What's unsafe? How do you know?
And also, if we have this in mind, that all of this inclusion, which I think it's fair, like, I think it's not nice being excluded and felt like alienated and like you're not part of something. It's not nice. And so I understand why, people are doing the things they're doing. But we're in a world that the majority of population do identify as what they are born as. It's only a very small percentage. I think it was like 5% in United Kingdom, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was 5%, and compared to everyone else. So it's like, I get it if if same-sex couple want to have a child and adopt, I get it. Okay, there's a language that is now being provided to hospitals, and so to make them feel better, that's absolutely fine. But take the Mr. and Mrs. Potato scenario. So are we going to go back in time and change everything so that they all feel included? And I think it was Piers Morgan that said this, that just by you being told you're chest feeding or you're a parent, that already is actually secluding you as a person. That's not making you feel any normal, right? And
Absolutely.
it was actually, I think it was a trans guy, or was it, I think he might have been gay actually, that actually commented, and he was like, all of this, I get it, it's nice, but that just makes us feel even more separated to normality, to what we want normal to be. We want to be the male that we feel that we are, or we want to be the woman that we feel that we are. But you giving us these categories and boxes to tick, it's just making us feel, so it's like a very small percentage of people are the ones that are fighting for this.
What you just said is absolutely right. Like, the fact that they've created this language, it's just isolated them more, and it's just highlighted how different that they are. And I can't imagine that was the intention, but that's what's happened now.
Absolutely.
Had the language been the same as they use for everybody, then surely, they'd feel more included. But then at the same time, you don't know, because this could be something that was called for, like it's in Brighton, there's a high percentage of same-sex couples and, stuff like that in Brighton. And I think it's something that they probably thought and spoke about and investigated for quite a long time, probably before they made this decision. But like you said, have they thought about the other people that might have been quite happy with the language that was used?
Well, no, this is the thing. And like Jess said, it's such a small percentage, but yet as women, I personally think replacing terms such as breast, woman, maternity, it's excluding biological born women. Like, you can't say, like, for example, if you're a female, you turn into a man, you've made that decision that you no longer want to have that biology within you. But if I'm born a woman and I want to remain a woman, then I'm being deprived of that just because someone else wants to feel included from something that they already were, but they decided against. So that's where I'm in two minds. Like, I accept them, but I don't accept that now everyone just wants to change everything and include, oh, well, we have to, soon Barbie's not going to be Barbie. She's just going to be, she's not going to have sex because that's frowned upon, apparently. Another thing I wanted to mention, did you know, apparently, when you're born, you're assigned a sex? So when you had your little boy, did your midwife say, what sex would you like to assign your child? No. But it's referred to as that. So apparently now, like, it's ridiculous. Like, oh, when you were born, she was assigned female. Like, no, she wasn't assigned anything. That's what she was born with.
Actually, when she was conceived, that's what that is what happened. That's the gender that she was made.
Mama's Code.
Listen, when Erica told me that you can assign genders to your baby at birth, like, hold on a minute. So what if you're raising a girl as a non-gender or a male, and then all of a sudden they grow up and realize, in fact, I'm a girl? Do you know how that's going to blow their mind?
I tell you what else is I think it's disturbing. The child didn't have a choice.
Exactly. And they're the ones that are like, we need to feel liberated. We need to find ourselves and find our identities in the right gender and the right body. But you doing this is not giving your child a choice for them to find it. Like, have you chosen this for them? I do believe that you can be born gay. Like, I do believe that that's just a thing. Or you're born in the wrong body, because I've seen little kids that they have no idea about these things, but they just don't identify as that, or they know from a very young age that they're into the same sex.
The thing is, when they're little and they're growing, they go through so much. Like, I don't believe until they get to a certain age is when they really understand what they're feeling and what they're thinking, because you know what it's like when you're in high school, when you're in primary school, growing up, you've got a best friend. She's like your best friend. And I just think that sometimes they push things onto children. They push this education onto them, which then starts making them think, well, I really love my best friend, but like, does that mean that I'm gay? But you're not gay. She's just your friend and you like spending time with her, and that's it. But I think when they're teaching sex education now, they are including a lot of things that I think is giving kids too much information. And they don't really understand it, so they don't know what to do with this information. So then they start drawing all these conclusions about themselves, when actually what they're going through is just it's normal.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I also think that during your puberty, or you're growing up and you're finding your identity, you will realize at one point, actually I'm gay, or actually I feel like I'm supposed to be a man, for example. And they will express this to you. They will come to you and say, this is how I feel.
And like you said, if they do genuinely feel that way, they will get to a point where they're like, hang on, wait, like something's different. I'm different. I feel this way. I feel that way. You don't need to be letting a year 5-year-old kid, because I think that's when they start learning about sex education, and start confusing their brain and making them think these things that they don't need to be worrying about.
So I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was this couple, and they had a baby. They raised the baby as they, and non-binary. They never made their genitalia public. So obviously they didn't, but they didn't say if it was male or female, only to the grandparents and the close family. And they chose a unisex name, and they decided to dress the child as any clothes, basically. So obviously if it was girl clothes, if it was boy clothes, that's fine. But my thing here is, and everyone is free to do whatever they want with their kids, but my thing here is, what happens to this child when they grow up and they realize, oh, my body is the same as that person?
And this is where it just concerns me, because obviously in my job I work with all kinds of families, and this is why this subject's quite tricky. I've never worked with a family where they've had gender reassignment or anything like that, but I just feel like in all of this, the people that are important are the kids. And you've got to, however you want to live your life, however you want to bring up your family, you've got to also think about these children and any effects that you're having on them, their mental health, like you said, when they go to school, how they're going to be accepted at school and things like that. So I think you have to be very mindful and be very careful about some things that you do, because it does affect them. Kids are cruel. Kids will say things, and kids are not silly. They can see what's going on. Like I said, when that girl came home and she asked me, she was only, I would say she was about 5 or 6. No, she was about 6. So she could see what was going on. She didn't understand it. So that was, like I said, that was easy to explain. But in a different situation, that wouldn't be. So when that kid goes to school and then the teacher's speaking about that kid, is a teacher obviously going to say they? And then all the kids at school are going to be like, well, what does they mean? I don't understand. Isn't she a she or a he, or what's the kid's name? Do you know what I mean? It's not only confusing for that kid, but it's going to be confusing for all the other children.
I personally think it's child abuse, like a child is a sponge. It's growing up to be its unique self. And like you said, Lauren, whatever age the child is, it will identify it as, whatever it wants to be. But you need to let the child be. You can't, from the moment the baby's born, say, okay, well, I'm not going to give you a gender and you're just going to be they, and then just kind of go from boy to girl. Because again, like you said, you're just confusing the individual, and this person will get bullied. Because my son goes to a Catholic school. If a person like that was to go in, kids, like you say, kids are cruel. They'll be like, hold on a minute, so what are you? And the little girl's, all she's been taught is, oh, I'm they. No, but when you're in, like you said, when you're a 5-year-old, you're being taught these certain words, and they doesn't mean, it's not a pronoun for someone. They is, they, and then they are. So it just doesn't make sense. It won't add up to what you are, because, it's a girl or a boy. It's that simple in school, because we haven't got that far as to them mentioning, oh, well, no, now you can choose whatever you want to be. And this is my fear, that one day that will become a thing where the government and all these people will just be like, yeah, go on. Let's just redo all birth certificates. Kids have their say to, freedom of speech. Choose the sex you want. A 5-year-old doesn't know what sex it wants to be. My son has asked me to paint his nail. That doesn't necessarily mean he's gay.
No, he's just seen you do it,
exactly.
and he wants to do it too.
Yeah. But it's that confusion that we put into our kids.
Like, we've already come so far from, you know, the old traditional sexist upbringings. Like, you know, before, like, if a boy was to play with a doll or even think about getting it, like, you know, picking up a doll, it was already classified as, oh my god, no, he's gonna be gay, or oh my god, boys can't play with dolls. And or, like, for instance, girls can't play football or any rough sports because, you know, that's for boys. And are you going to be a tomboy now, etc, etc. But my dear, it's sports. But yeah, like, thankfully we've moved away from that, you know. Thankfully, like, even nowadays, dolls are actually used to teach kids empathy, to teach them how to care, how to love.
Just to be a parent, because they are, you know, a dad does play a big role in and no one's taken that away. A father is a big figure in a child's life, and them dealing with a doll will teach them, like you said, just empathy, you know, just how to deal with a baby. It doesn't make your child gay because it's playing with a doll. It's not gender specific toy. Just the same as a kitchen shouldn't just be for girls. It should be for boys too.
Well, yeah, and then what happens when they turn 11 or 12 and now they've got their period? Like, how, you know, like, are you teaching them these things while you're, you know, like, while you're raising them?
And I just worry for their mental health, because if you really sit and analyze it all, they will not know who they are. And having no identity, like, it's a really dangerous thing. You don't know where you belong. We see it in, you know, in races. We see it in different ethnicities where you don't know where you belong depending on who you've been brought up with and all that kind of stuff. And I just think this is really dangerous, because how can you not know where you fit? You're going to go to school, there's going to be boys, there's going to be girls. What are you? Like, who can you relate to? Who this kid will be asking themselves, but what am I? Like, they're all the boys and they're all the girls, but no one else is calling themselves they. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, I just think it's a really dangerous thing, because you're making the choice for the kid, and they will get to a point where they're going to get bullied. They're going to have to deal with a lot of stuff. And it's just really concerning. And it also worries me that in this situation, are the social services involved, or is it something where this isn't classed as something that could, you know, I feel like in this situation, you know, you get social services involved for less things. So this, for me, is a concern. And I feel like they can't just be left to kind of raise these kids, and, you know, they'll go through school and then again, schools, how will schools deal with it? Are schools going to accept this? Are schools then going to be like, okay, well, we'll call them they? I just don't see my kids' school doing that. Like, I just can't see them saying, yeah, no problem, we'll call them they. How about your school? Do you think they would do that?
No, especially because of the Catholic, it's religious, you know, the Bible says Adam and Eve. Are we going to go back thousands and thousands of years and change that too, and just say that Adam and Eve didn't really have a sex?
Well, even with religion, like, we've already come such a long way. You know, we can have same-sex marriage, and the Catholic Church, you know, every single year, like, accepts it in a different country. So I actually think that's pretty beautiful, because you know, why should it be a thing? If your love is not disturbing our life, then why should anyone have a say?
I agree with you. Like, I feel like that. I don't have any issues at all. It's just that when it comes to, you know, when the kids are involved, that's when I get emotional about it, because it's kind of like, you know, it's my job, I work with kids, and it just concerns me if the kids are going to be affected. If the kids are not affected, the kids are happy, then that's fine. But if I can see that there's going to be some damage there, or something, you know, the kids are going to be in a situation where they will not be happy, that is where I just don't agree with it. The kids are the most important thing. So whatever it is that you choose, like I said, whatever you choose to do, however you choose to live your life, that's fine. But just make sure that you are making sure that you're putting those kids first, and their mental health and their well-being, and thinking about how things are going to affect them.
Do you think it's maybe because, you know, back in the day, and I taught in Colombia, and it kind of still happens till this day, you know, gay people were abused, you know, it was like frowned upon to be gay or lesbian. You just couldn't be different because, you know, Colombia's a very Catholic country, so that was just a no-go. But even in other countries, you know, gays and lesbians would be executed. You know, how many people have stayed quiet and kept that as a secret and kind of married? You know, we had that guy from Good Morning. What's his name?
Philip Schofield.
Yeah, look how long. He got married, he had kids, and he'd been living with that because obviously some people still, till this day and age, think that that's not accepted. You know, their parents maybe were very strict. And like you guys said, I think love is love. You know, whether you are in love with another man, woman, it's all the same. What bothers me now is we've come such a long way accepting these people and accepting their love, you know, praising them, how far they've come. And then every single generation, it's just another thing added, you know, queer. Now, you know, we have this non-binary. It's like, when we're older, what else is going to be added to the equation? Are we not? So are our children going to come to a stage where we are no longer mum? Our husbands will no longer be dad, will just be referred to as parent to make everyone feel included. I just don't know where it is where we can still be included, because, you know, just touching on the thing from the hospital in Brighton, I also, like, you know, you get it wrong because of the media, but in fact, it's not maternal. What was it that I said, Jess?
It's perinatal services now instead of maternity. And instead of your maternity notes, it's going to be your parent handbook.
Yeah, so they won't refer to you in documents, like legal documents. They won't refer to you as a mother. They'll refer to you as a birthing parent. And it almost feels like they are diminishing the female's role in childbirth. For me, it feels cold. I don't like it. If they want to call whatever, but taking away from us what is ours, you know, I, as a woman, will give birth to a baby, you know, just as, you know, a gay man will get a surrogate because they know a woman has to give them it's just that simple, you know. Man, cool. Woman, cool. You love, you don't identify, okay, but don't try and come back to a gender that you've left, and now everyone wants to change everything. And all this change is just going to get worse because of that. No one voices anything. Everyone's scared. Oh my God, you know, I've seen it loads with comedians. You know, Dave Chappelle was like, oh yeah, the LGBTQ people try to cancel him because, you know, he's voiced his issues with them. And it's that, like, it's because it's such small community, but yet they cause the most noise. But then what about us?
Yeah, and exactly. So imagine in this day and age, as a woman, you go through so much. Like, for instance, if you're a new mom and you're going to go breastfeed your child in a cafe or wherever you need to, the way, like, some people still look at you sideways, like you're just having sex in public, basically. And, you know, you'll have people that will look at you and say, cover up. And it just makes you feel really uncomfortable. And I've heard a lot of stories that mums just don't pursue breastfeeding because of this. And it's like, do you know how horrible that is? But tell me this, if you go into a cafe tomorrow and you see a trans chest feeding, I promise you are not going to be able to say, oh my God, please cover up, because the LGBTQ plus community will come at you and cancel you, and they will be like, oh my God, you are, you know, excluding us, you're being prejudiced, it's just too much.
Mama, I love you.
Right, guys, so I think it's very clear that we could be here all night going round and round in circles because it's really hard for us to understand, and the idea was to have a constructive conversation and obviously discuss, you know, what's going on. But my question to close this off is, how, like, what are you doing to raise your child knowing that they could be coming back home from school and say, oh, you know, this new person started school and I went to say she or him, and they said that they're not a she or he. So, you know, how are you gonna make them understand Because I mean, I think I'll speak for all of us that I think we're all glad that these people are feeling a bit more included. And I think that's the most important thing.
Gosh.
You guys look like you're about to leave me in this chat by myself.
I'm literally about to cancel this whole thing.
I think I would just say it straight, to be honest. I would just explain it's something I don't really understand either. But some parents have made this decision, and that's how they've decided to bring up their children. Obviously, we've got a different way of doing it. Yeah, I mean, what more can you say? We don't even know what's going on, really. But yeah, I think the main thing is just to basically reiterate that is their way. We have our way. And I guess you shouldn't really treat them any different because of it, because, you know, like we say, kids can be really cruel, and, you know, naturally they'll think that's weird because they'll be like, I don't understand, you know, what is this? But you just teach them to be kind. Even if you don't understand something, still don't, just because you don't understand something, you shouldn't treat someone any different, really.
You're right. It's just really hard because before this episode, I did try to educate myself on, you know, non-binary people, and I don't understand. I personally wouldn't know what to say. I'd probably say the same things you said, you know, just accept them, and, you know, they can still be your friend. It's not like, kind of not alienate the person because, oh, you're not a boy, you're not a girl. But I think kids are very inclusive anyways. You know, they don't really care if you've got a mole on your head. It's just, it's different. But yeah, I just think it's very difficult. And I don't think someone will have a concrete answer because not everyone really understands it. Because if I say to my child, like what you said, you know, their parents decided for them, then what if he turns around and says to me, okay, I want to be referred to they, but he doesn't really know what that means. And nor does the person that is being referred to as they, because they're 5.
Yeah.
5-year-old doesn't know what they means. And as you said, it's just going to be confused because everyone, that person's little friends, is going to be a he or a she because we're just more, and they're going to be excluded from that. Just everything you've said is what this person is going to be feeling. So me trying to explain it to my child, it's not going to make it any different. Because
and what you have to remember as well is, yeah, we're like the teachers might be saying they, but the kids are not going to be saying they because they don't understand. They'll just be saying she. So that kid's then going to go home and be like, oh yeah, I'm not they, I'm she, or I'm her. Do you know what I mean? Like, so your kid might not even come home and be like, oh yeah, this person's called they.
They won't get it. Well, my son, the eldest, he's 6. And for the longest period, he would call his friends, but that were girls, he'll be like, he didn't do that. And I'd be like, oh my God, Joe, it's a she. And then my friend till now laughs because sometimes he's like, oh, Sada's a he. And I'm like, no, it's a she. Like, it's not that difficult. But then imagine trying to now explain, okay, well, it's not them pronouns now. It's now X, Y, and Z. It's just really difficult for them. You know, they're just, you know, he struggled with he and she. And then imagine trying to add in, no, I can't.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's just important for us to emphasize to the kids that you don't treat them differently, whether, you know, they refer to themselves as they, because at the end of the day, when we're the grandparents, we're going to look back and remember this, and we're going to think, oh my God, it makes much more sense now, because at the moment, like, it's all so new and it's all, you know, but our kids in theory are going to be the ones that are going to be working with them, colleagues and friends.
And who knows, maybe further down the line, that definition of non-binary will be explained better, because as Lauren stated, don't be surprised that in schools they'll start introducing that to, you know, include more of these people, because there are adults out there that are doing this to their children, and there will be the, you know, odd Karen and Susan protesting, oh, you have to add this to the list of schools and stuff. It's difficult.
And also, those kids, are they going to go to a girls' school or a boys' school?
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
I think they're going to end. Because again, it's all about gender neutral.
But will they though? Because the girls' schools and boys' schools are normally religious schools.
Yeah, like what about the higher percentage of us that still want to send our girls to all girls school and all boys school, like, so we don't matter now then?
Unless they have a school that's just for days.
Oh my god. Stop, listen. I think this is where we're going to end this conversation. I don't think we can say anything else after that.
Oh no, you finished me with that one. That's actually a quite good $1 billion idea, Lauren. Go for it.
I don't have time for another thing to do. I've got enough.
Do you know what? I think the golden tip can just be kind and think, because they don't identify as what we see as normal, it doesn't mean that we should make them feel alienated. But thank you so much, Lauren, for coming on. It's been eventful, and we're probably gonna go sleep and think, oh my god, what is the world gonna be like tomorrow?
Honestly, it's been really insightful, and you know, it's just like, this for me is a tricky subject because of my job, but like I said, with my job comes with the care of children, and that is where my main concern is. So it's been interesting to kind of delve a little deeper and try and work out kind of the ideas that are behind, you know, things that they've decided to do.
Yeah, I think it's all a thing about being open-minded, and
It is.
Ask, you know, and try to understand people and have these constructive conversations that is going to get you somewhere.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Yes, it has. But guys, happy Monday, happy International Women's Day. We hope you have a fantastic day and week. And also, in advance, happy Mother's Day, guys. Please stay tuned to what we've got coming for Mother's Day. And guys, if you've enjoyed this episode, please do share. Feedback, support is much appreciated. Mama's Code out. Mwah.
Mama's Code.